Please find a seat and come as close as you can. I won't bite. Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Please have a seat. We're getting ready to start. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Rachel Gutman, and I am the Director of International Development at ANU Museum of the Jewish People. We are here today to celebrate the establishment of the Koret Center for Jewish Civilization, a partnership between the Koret Foundation, Tel Aviv University, and ANU Museum of the Jewish People. Tel Aviv University and ANU share a campus, a common vision, and now, thanks to the Koret Foundation, we embark on a partnership that harnesses Tel Aviv University's unparalleled resources in Jewish and Israel studies, ANU standing as the preeminent museum of the Jewish people, and the Koret International School for Jewish Peoplehood's creative educational programs. The center will be dedicated to finding new solutions to the challenges of our times. It does so by capitalizing on Tel Aviv's robust entrepreneurial ecosystem and turning it into a hub for Jewish innovation and creativity and a revival of Jewish civilization for the 21st century. Today, we are paying tribute to the Koret Foundation for bringing this ambitious vision into reality. And now, I'd like to introduce a number of people who helped realize this dream. First, it is my honor to welcome Professor Ariel Porat, the president of Tel Aviv University, and the university's Alan Poor Professor of Law. From 2003 until his appointment as the president of the university, Professor Porat was the official Neal Distinguished Visiting Professor of Law at the University of Chicago, In addition, he was a visiting professor at the universities of Berkeley, Columbia, New York, Stanford, Toronto, and Virginia. Professor Porat, welcome.
Good afternoon. This is for me, it's a very special occasion. First of all, because of the topic, and second, because of Anita, Jeff, and the Koret Foundation. So there are two issues which are related to each other. You know, we are in a very difficult days. There are two movements who are in the growth. One is anti-Semitism, and the other one is BDS. I understand very well that BDS and anti-Semitism, these are not, it's different, it's not the same thing, but there is probably some relationship between the two. So each, in a way, feeds the other. Let me give you two examples, three. The last one is from this morning. Just two examples, two or three. So about half a year ago, a law journal at NYU announced the policy of the journal in the law school. It's a law journal in the law school, announced the policy not to take submissions for academicians in Israeli institutions, from academic institutions in Israel. That was the first time that I know that at least in law schools, there was not just a protest of one individual or another, but instead institutional decision to boycott Israeli academia. This is one example. Another one took place just a few weeks ago, and that was the Crimson Board. So those of you who do not know, this is also a kind of a journal of the undergraduate students at Harvard. And they also called for boycotting Israeli academic institutions. So they also joined the BDS, and again, it was organizational, not just one individual. I've been in touch with the leaders of these two universities, and also with NYU, I also was in touch with some of my colleagues at the law school. All the people I talked with didn't like it, and of course didn't like what has been done by the journals. But you know, in the United States, and I of course respect it, it's also in Israel, First Amendment rights as free speech is taken seriously. I knew that they could not really positively intervene, but I think for me, this is the first occasion with the NYU journal, it was kind of a shocking, because I'm you know, I've been many times in American law schools, visited in many places, and I've never encountered BDS personally. And that was the first time, and not only by one individual, but kind of an organizational one. The third example, actually, it's from this morning. This morning, I got an email from one of my colleagues here at the university, and it actually sent me, it's not exactly, it's kind of a not a petition, actually it's a resolution. It's a Students' Senate resolution at UC Riverside that also adopted the BDS strategy, right, against Israel. Once again, not just one individual, but the entire body of students through its Senate that made Israel subject to boycott or Israeli academic institutions. This is very troubling, of course, and unfortunately, I'm not sure that in the next year or so, things would be better for us. Now, why do I mention it? I mentioned anti-Semitism, I also mentioned the BDS. As I say, they might be connected, they are not identical, it's not the same thing. But in those days, you could say, so the BDS is directed to Israel, the anti-Semitism is basically directed to Jewish communities in the world, and you could say very, you don't need to be very intelligent to understand that this is a time for, sticking together, collaborating to combat or to confront those two movements together, the Jewish community or the Israel more generally, together with Jewish communities all over the world, in particular in the United States and Europe, but also in other places as well. So far, so good. Now, unfortunately, this is not exactly what happens. Right? So when you talk to some of my colleagues here, not colleagues, I think my colleagues are more sophisticated than that, but when you talk to Israelis about anti-Semitism around the world, it seems that some of them, not all of them of course, they think, well, this is not our problem. We have our own problems here in Israel. This is not our problem. This is the problem of the Jewish communities in the world, and they should somehow deal with that. They don't feel that this is their problem. Now, sometimes it's the same thing also with the BDS. Of course, the people sitting here are not the people I'm talking about. They are, of course, different. But there are people also in the Jewish community in the United States that think, well, BDS, this is against Israel, this is against the Israeli academia, it's not our problem. I think it's, both sides are wrong, or people on both sides who think that this is their problem, not ours, They both are wrong. Now, the new center, the new Koret Center, we are inaugurating today. One of its aim is to bridge the gap between Israel and the Jewish community in Israel and the Jewish communities in the world. More generally, the aim of this center is to face the challenges of modern Judaism, of the contemporary modern Judaism challenges. And this is so important and really so urgent. Now, how we do it? So this is a very special collaboration. As far as I know, the first time a kind of a formal collaboration between ANU, for those of you who remember ANU as it was before the Diaspora Museum here at our campus, but it's not an integral part of the university. And Tel Aviv University, through its fantastic School of Jewish Studies and Archaeology. And of course, the third partner, well, definitely not the less important one, is of course a Koret Foundation that takes part in this initiative, and without the Koret Foundation it wouldn't happen. So it's going to be a collaboration of three parties: Tel Aviv University, the Koret Foundation of course, and ANU, and we are going to do great things together to face those challenges and more challenges. I've mentioned just few more of the challenges that we should encounter here at Tel Aviv University, but actually more broadly in Israel and in the world. Now, let me say a few words about Koret Foundation. Today in the morning, I looked at the internet, trying to find some vision, and so I want to read to you. It's very short. The title is "What We Fund." Somehow, when I read it, I see Anita in my head, but I am not sure. But it seems to me Anita's style of anyway. For almost half a century, the foundation has devoted its resources to elevating the quality of life for all who live in the Bay Area and to supporting the vitality of the worldwide Jewish community. Grounded in historical Jewish principles and traditions and dedicated to humanitarian values, the Foundation invests in effective community organizations. We are deeply committed to innovation, to testing new ideas, and to serving as a catalyst by bringing people and organizations together to help solve social problems of common concern. These are wonderful words, and that's exactly what I cannot think of a project which is more like 100% consistent with these great values. Now, let me say a few more words about the Koret Foundation at Tel Aviv University. So this is not the first project that the Koret Foundation is supporting here. There are several others extremely important to us. There is one that has been funded by Koret Foundation, very important collaboration between Tel Aviv University and Berkeley on bioinformatics and computational biology. There is another one with Stanford, or smart cities and digital living. And the third one is a Bay Area initiative, also with collaboration of Ted Taubey, right? Again, at Tel Aviv University with partners in the Bay Area on degenerative diseases, and they know to pick up the most important topics. And in all those areas, Tel Aviv University really advanced dramatically because of you have really made a change in those areas. This is not easy. It's not easy to make a real change. Sometimes you have support, that lasts for 2 or 3 years, and then it ends, and after 2 years, nobody really remembers. It happens, unfortunately. It happens that after 2 or 4 years, nobody remembers. The impact is gone. This is completely different with all the projects that have been initiated by the Koret Foundation together with Tel Aviv University. Let me now end by thanking a few people. So let me start with my own faculty. So where is Yuval here? Excuse me, I cannot see. Yuval is here. Yuval Rotman. Where are you, Yuval? Oh, you are here, sorry. Yuval Rotman. Yuval Rotman is who is the one leading the fantastic School of Jewish Studies and Archaeology, and he also led this initiative on our behalf. Gali Cinnamon, sitting next to him, our excellent Dean of Humanities, also was a very major and important partner in this endeavor. And I would also mention Noam Vered, who is Yuval's predecessor as the head of the school, Ranan Rain, who was my vice president, who also took part at the initial stages in which we framed this initiative. And of course, Amos Elad, vice president for resource development, was also a central figure in making this agreement, this project, framing it in the right way, and I should also thank him as well. And of course, I want to thank Irena Nevzlin, she is the chair of ANU, and Dan Tadmor, is he here, Dan? Yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you, the CEO of ANU. Yes, and these are also great, excellent people to work with, and we will do magics together. Finally, so there is Jeff Ferber here with us, who is the CEO of the Koret Foundation. I've met Jeff for the first time, it was about a few months ago. I've heard a lot about you from Amos Elad. I know that you are involved in all the fantastic projects that were here. Kind of a modest person, the person behind the scenes who did so much for the State of Israel and for Tel Aviv University. So this is an opportunity to thank you in person for what you did for the sake of the State of Israel and Tel Aviv University. Last, but definitely not least, Anita, Dr. Anita Friedman. So, what could I say about Anita? So Anita, let's start, first of all, her role at the university. So Anita, in addition to being the head of the Koret Foundation and the leader of the foundation, she is also a vice chair at Tel Aviv University's Board of Governors. She is also the chair of our global campaign. She is a very, very dear friend of the university, and I want to believe that also of me. From my side, yes. I hope it's also from your side. Anita is a leader that are very few like her in the United States. She is, I believe, the most prominent Jewish leader in the American Jewish community. I don't know if you are going to speak. I hope you are going to speak, because when you hear her, you'll see what a star we have here. So Anita has done so much for the State of Israel, and leading the Koret Foundation in such wonderful directions. When I have read this kind of mission that you have described, this is exactly my taste too. On the one hand, Jewish causes, but humanistic values all go together, and that's what we also try to do here at Tel Aviv University. So thank you very much. It's a very special occasion, and I promise you, Anita and Jeff, that Irena, Dan, myself, Yuval, and Gali wouldn't disappoint you. It would be a great project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Koret. I'm honored now to welcome Irena Nevzlin, Chair of the Board of ANU Museum of the Jewish People. Irina Nevzlin is an Israeli entrepreneur, chair of the board of directors at ANU, founder and chair of Improvate, and author of the award-winning book, The Impact of Identity, The Power of Knowing Who You Are. Irina spearheaded the comprehensive bottom-up transformation and renewal of the Diaspora Museum into what is now ANU Museum of the Jewish People. Irina is president of the Nadav Foundation, which promotes projects that build a sense of Jewish peoplehood and humanistic values. Please welcome Irina Nevzlin.
Hi, everyone. I don't ever want to speak after the president of the university and before Anita again. Thank you for wonderful words that you said. I prepared a small speech, but I think I'll talk about something different because Anita has this unique way of inspiring the thinking while just sitting nearby. It's truly the first real, hopefully, and I know it will be, cooperation between Tel Aviv University and the museum. Inspired by and moved and pushed gently and not so gently by Anita, for which we are very grateful. The reason why it's so important now, I don't have anything to add to what you said about anti-Semitism and what's happening in the Jewish world, but we're watching now in the world the fight between good and bad very clearly. We're not in the gray area anymore. There is a war going on in Ukraine, and we very clearly understand that some people stand for good and some people stand for bad. And unfortunately, there is no kind of avoiding that. We tried to avoid that because it's hard to see the evil. And to fight, there are ways to fight the evil, but I think one of them is to actually be on the side of good. But this is hard. This is really hard, and it creates sustainability. It needs sustainability. It needs a lot of energy to be able to stand for many, many years on the side of good. And especially those who come from the area that I come from, we know that all too well about the fight of the good and evil. And there is no opportunity to fight good by yourself. There's simply no opportunity not to do it in partnerships. Now, there are all sorts of different partnerships. And there are some partnerships which are, they look like partnerships, but they are not actually for real. And then there are some partnerships which can be really a win-win partnership, which is where each side clearly sees the benefit of doing something together, because together you can do much bigger and you can sustain the evil and fight the evil much better than if you were by yourself. Now, it's amazing to be able to implement Anita's vision of cooperation and to help. What we do best, the museum, is that we provide people with the experience. In order for that experience to be sustained, there has to be an academic excellence, because ultimately the only way to fight the evil is in education. And you can clearly see with Russia as an example, I can tell you exactly what was missing there for many years. The education for values is what was missing there. So for us to be able to finally be partners in the way that I think will be really fruitful and ongoing and long-term is an amazing opportunity. We love partnerships. We've built a great partnership over the years with many partners. Not everybody as smart as Koret Foundation and as careful in mentoring and guiding us in the right direction. And I think that what we are creating here, and it's hard for me to know what it's going to be actually. I mean, we know what we start with. I don't think we know where we will go, and that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of win-win, and that's the beauty of a real partnership, that it can go to so many directions, which will be ultimately relevant to what's happening with the world now. So on a very personal level, I want to thank Anita for inspiring me, for making me think twice about what I say and rethink and contemplate and be frustrated and take it to a next level, and to continue to be Jewish and think that something is not enough and you can do better, to teaching me how to build partnerships, to Jeff and to all Koret Foundation for sticking up with us for so many years that we actually can do something. You said very right. If you do it short term, you can never build anything. But the fact is that you're guiding us and helping us for such a long time makes us bigger and better every day. Of course, I want to thank everybody on the university team, and I'm sure we're all very different. We're all about experience. You're all about academics. But I'm sure ultimately we want the same thing. We want the future for the Jewish people where people feel proud, where people feel safe, and where people feel that they know what it means to be Jewish, feel and can give it to their children. And for that, we need an education. And of course, I will not name everyone. I'll only name Dan, who has to suffer from me daily, and all our team, because it's nice to be able to stand here. It wouldn't happen, though, without everyone on the team in making it happen. I'm really excited. I'm really honored to work with you and with the president, of course. Still nervous to talk after you. And with everyone here, because I think we're in the beginning of something which we don't know what it's going to be, but it has all the opportunity of being beautiful and impactful. So thank you.
Thank you, Irina. We will now enjoy a musical performance by Igor Ostrovsky, who will be playing a medley of Jewish classics. Igor? Thank you, Igor. That was really beautiful. It is now my great honor to introduce Dr. Anita Friedman, President of the Koret Foundation. Dr. Friedman is the Executive Director of Jewish Family and Children's Services of San Francisco, the Peninsula, Marin, and Sonoma counties in California. She is an expert on Holocaust and genocide education, an author, and a strong voice and advocate for Israel and Jews everywhere. As president of the Koret Foundation, Dr. Friedman has been a force in developing partnerships between Tel Aviv University and Stanford University and UC Berkeley, as well as the partnership between Tel Aviv University and ANU. She is co-chair of Tel Aviv University's Global $1 Billion Campaign, is vice president of the International Board of Governors of Tel Aviv University, and is a founding member of ANU's newly minted International Board of Trustees. Please welcome Dr. Anita Friedman.
That was wonderful music. Igor, молодец, that was beautiful. I felt like I was back, I felt like I was back in Brooklyn, but really inspiring. This whole coming together is such an important historic moment for all of us. So I'm going to be honest with all of you, because you're my friends, and we're working in common cause on behalf of this university, on behalf of the Jewish people, on behalf of the State of Israel, on behalf of all of us who care deeply about our future. Those of us who are in leadership in the Jewish community need to take responsibility for where we find ourselves. We're at the same time, it's the moment when we're the strongest the Jewish people has ever been, the best organized. We have a country, the State of Israel. We also are under tremendous attack. Delegitimization of Israel is widespread. Anti-Semitism is widespread. All of us understand the challenges we face. But we face internal challenges too. You know, most civilizations die from suicide, not from homicide. We face internal challenges as a Jewish people that we have to address. That's the role of leadership. That's what we're intending to address here. You know, Irina and I were at a conference. I was asked to speak. You probably remember this, Irina, a few years ago at the Herzliya conference. And this was a national security conference. And we were meeting with a general from the IDF. And I said, why do you want me to speak at a security conference about the State of Israel? And he said, because we consider the parting of the ways between Israel and the United States and Israel and the diaspora as a national security threat. It is a national security threat. When we're separated, when we part ways, when we don't know each other, as a people, bad things happen to us. And bad things are happening to us, and bad things threaten us. So it's incumbent on us as leadership of the Jewish community to do something. You know, I was talking to a young guy here in Israel. Many of you know this. Many of you are from here, understand this. And I said, you know, what do you think about the American Jewish community? He said, actually, I don't think about it. I said, well, if you had to characterize what's the, you know, who's the American Jewish community to you? He said, well, it's like some kind of like old rich uncle. And then I was talking to some American kids, and many of you who are from the United States, if you have children, you have grandchildren, you know children, you know that they also don't identify very deeply with being Jewish or very deeply with the State of Israel. If you don't care, if it's not meaningful to you in your life to be Jewish, then why would you care about Israel? There was a study done not too long ago. Some of you may know this study. And this was the research question. The research question was, if the State of Israel no longer existed, would you consider it a personal tragedy? Now, people who are over 60, 79% would consider it a personal tragedy. I bet most people in this room would consider it a personal tragedy, especially for the diaspora, and locally, of course. But for people who are in the 30s, 35% would consider it a personal tragedy. That says a lot about the imperative of the leadership of the organized Jewish community worldwide to do something. To do something. That's what we are doing. We are doing something. We are finding the way forward by bringing together the preeminent Jewish museum in the world. It tells the story of the Jewish community and the Jewish people in a very vivid way, all the Jewish people, in a very vivid and engaging way. We can bring all the birthright trips. We can bring all the senators and the Congress people that I often bring to Israel there to tell the story. And we're bringing together the flagship institution, academic institution of the State of Israel and of the world, Tel Aviv University, a major Jewish foundation. We also are hoping to bring in the State of Israel and the Ministry of the Diaspora, other Jewish organizations in common cause, because all of us understand the urgency, the absolute urgency of the moment that we face. It is our responsibility to move the Jewish people in the right direction, taking into account the challenges we face right now. That is the purpose of this project. That's why it's so inspiring to see people coming together in common cause. That's why there's so much deep, deep commitment to making this work. It'll work in Israel, with students in Israel, and with schools in Israel, and with Israelis, to change their view of the peoplehood. There is really not a very strong sense of peoplehood here in Israel. It'll work around the world to educate and inspire younger people to feel it's meaningful to be Jewish and to understand the Jewish state and to understand Israel and to feel identified with Israel and bring us together because it will make us stronger. That's the purpose of this unprecedented, new, historic cooperation. And we're very, very moved by all of you, by the commitment of so many of you who are the leadership of these institutions to want to come together and to understand the imperative at this moment in history. So it's an honor for me to serve you. It's an honor for me to be involved in working with you. I know that most of the leadership of major institutions in the United States are also very excited about the potential that this enormous cooperation basically means, inspires us to think about, because we're much too fragmented as a people. We need to come together. So I just want to end by saying in Hebrew, Chazak, Chazak, Chazak v'nitchazek. Be strong, be strong, be strong, and may we strengthen each other. Okay. God bless you. God bless you. We are all doing God's work together.
Thank you, Dr. Friedman. I am now extremely pleased to introduce our next speaker, Jeff Farber. Jeff is CEO of the Koret Foundation, where he directs philanthropic initiatives in the San Francisco Bay Area, Israel, and worldwide. Jeff currently serves on the board of American Friends of the Koret Israel Economic Development Funds and the National Executive Committee of AIPAC. To those who know Jeff, he is the embodiment of the spirit of tzedek, righteousness. Please welcome Jeff Farber.
Irina, you got up and said it's difficult. How would you like to speak between President Porat and Anita Friedman? How would you like to speak after Anita Friedman and say anything that's as meaningful as she does? But I can tell you, friends and colleagues, it is a pleasure, and I am extremely honored to have the opportunity to be here in person, in Israel, on the Tel Aviv campus, especially after what we've gone through the past 2 years. And I'm delighted to represent the Koret Foundation, its staff, and its board in inaugurating this one-of-a-kind collaboration, as both Irina and Anita said, bringing together two world-class institutions, TAU and ANU. The Koret Center, as you heard, will pioneer new ways to educate Israelis and the diaspora Jews on contemporary Jewish thought, Jewish identity, and our shared stories. We know, as you've heard from our other speakers, that we must act now to address this growing divide between our two communities. This is why the Koret Foundation is so dedicated to strengthening the ties between Israel and the global Jewish community through creating meaningful dialogue and mutual understanding on these critical issues. I thank you in advance, the team that you, President Porat, and you, Irina, have put together to make this into a reality. And again, I'm so proud to be here and to be part of this. Thank you.
I'm really getting my steps in today. It's my great pleasure now to welcome Professor Rachel Gali-Zinnemann. Professor Zinnemann is the Dean of the Lester and Sally Entin Faculty of the Humanities and head of the Career Development Lab at Tel Aviv University. Her research interests focus on career development of women, minorities, and at-risk populations, and work-family relations through the lifespan. Please welcome Professor Zinnemann.
Wow, what a moment. I'm so excited and honored to be here in this important event for our Faculty of Humanities. Academic practice consists of three main areas: research, teaching, and community involvement. This ceremony today, that we are celebrating today, concludes fruitful collaboration between these three areas. And this is extremely difficult to collaborate between family members, between academic units, between the Jewish people, between diverse units of the society. Collaboration and mutual work is a very complicated and difficult task. And the moment that we are celebrating today, this amazing project of Koret Foundation for Jewish Civilization, it's a miracle that promises something for academia. Because we see the Koret Center for Jewish Civilization as a pioneering and groundbreaking center that might serve as a model for innovating research and for innovation in teaching and making knowledge accessible for the community, and not just the community of the Jewish people, for the whole world. So I would like to thank all the partners that make this project, make this miracle to happen. I would like especially to thank the president of our university, Professor Ariel Porat, for his ongoing support for the humanities, especially these days. He understands that humanities serve a crucial unit in creating a decent society, not just in Israel, all over the world, and he supports us every day, and we thank and appreciate this very much. We would like also to thank Amos Elad, who help us to find resources for our ideas and mission. We would like to thank Dr. Anita Friedman, as you just heard, for her amazing vision of how to make this world a better place for Jewish and not just for the Jewish. We would like to thank Jeffrey Ferber for his work with her, and for our partners, Irena Nevzlin, and the chair of ANU, and Dan Tadmor. We are looking forward our mission to make this collaboration, as you just mentioned. We just started, we don't know how it will be developed, and this is the promise. We have the mission to make it a very good idea and practice. But I would like to give a special thanks and mention the amazing work of our colleague and friend, Professor Yuval Rothman, the head of School of Jewish Studies and Archaeology. You are a real leader. Anita just spoke about our role, the leaders, to unite, to join forces, to make an emphasis of the real values that need to lead us. And you did it, and you did an amazing. You make all members of our faculty, not just your school, to work together and created this amazing, promising project. Thank you. I would like also to wish good luck to Professor Maria Poliak, the academic director of the center, and the whole member of school. We have a lot of work to do and to fulfill the promise. Thank you all, and we look forward to stand here next year and to celebrate our new achievement. Good luck, and toda raba.
Thank you, Professor Zinamon. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Professor Yuval Rothman. Professor Rothman is the chair of the Rosenberg School of Jewish Studies and Archaeology at Tel Aviv University. Yuval is a social historian whose expertise is the Byzantine Mediterranean. Please welcome Professor Yuval Rothman.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dear President of the University, dear President of the Museum, and dear President of the Koret Foundation. It is an exciting and moving moment to witness how an idea that sprouted a year and a half ago has developed, took form, and is actualized. It is not less and even more exciting to witness the enthusiasm with which this idea was welcomed and the support it got. I would like to thank the Koret Foundation, its president, its CEO, its board of directors, and representatives for making this happen, and for responding with so much attention, willingness, and excitement to the invitation of the ANU Museums and the Rosenberg School of Jewish Studies and Archaeology at Tel Aviv University to develop a new vision of Judaism as a civilization. What do we mean by Jewish civilization? The term civilization refers to the largest human collective organization in existence. So not a state, not a religion, society, or community. All these do not reflect the dynamic, diverse, and inclusive character of Judaism. Moreover, they do not convey its distinctive role in world history. If we take the subject of identity, for example, a civilization has no firm boundaries as far as identities are concerned. On the contrary, it allows a fluid, dynamic, multiple, and unexclusive identities simultaneously. In fact, this is its main strength. It enriches itself from multiplicities of societies, communities, cultures, and ideas. A civilization becomes important and influential exactly when it expresses its diversity and turns it into a feature of its development. One of the most ancient civilizations in world history, the Jewish civilization has had an extraordinary development in every aspect: historical, social, cultural, and intellectual. Its diversity has allowed it great flexibilities and adaptabilities to changing circumstances. All this kept It's such a lively and dynamic civilization over millennia. A civilization which introduced innovative and even radical currents of thought, sometimes conflictual, which have offered great ideas to world history, ideas that challenge the world, starting with monotheism and the Bible itself, the text as an idea, the text as a touchstone, developed here in the land of the Bible, the land of Israel. And up to the great thinkers of modern times, and including the idea of Zionism, the idea of grouping together people from different places and build a society from scratch. The Jewish civilization is facing today growing challenges. These are not only the political threats of anti-Semitism, BDS, and anti-Israel, but also internal and semi-internal challenges that refer to its past and present, tradition and modernity, Israel and the diaspora, religiosity and secularity, avant-garde and conservatism. These are not new. Indeed, the great importance and beauty of the Jewish civilization lies in the fact that it has managed to cope with such and much more demanding and urgent challenges all along its history. And it managed to do that, to organize itself as a collectivity without a political framework, without a religious center, without a land. It managed to do it by creating forms of connectivity, collaboration, by developing a sense of solidarity, and by its diversity. So, connectivity, solidarity, diversity, these are what the Koret Center for Jewish Civilization is about. It will enhance them by promoting a new way to bridge between academia and the public, between Israel and the diaspora, between different diasporas, and between Jews and non-Jews. There are means to do that and to respond to anti-Semitism and other threats is education. This is the challenge in front of us. It is up to us to convey a new vision of Judaism, worthy of the magnificent civilization we inherited. The Rosenberg School of Jewish Studies and Archaeology at Tel Aviv University and the Anu Museum of the Jewish People offer together the ideal framework to meet this challenge, together with the Faculty of the Humanities at Tel Aviv University. With its 5 departments, 55 renowned scholars who offer a unique approach that combines archaeology with the study of history, thought, culture, and language. Together with the Anu Museum and the Koret Foundation, we will venture this vision outside academia and develop a new language in the public international sphere. We will focus on Judaism's exceptional dynamism, responsiveness, adaptability, and will promote the idea of the Jewish civilization as a world heritage, inclusive for both Jews and non-Jews. I thank the Koret Foundation, Dr. Anita Friedman in person, and Jeff Ferber in person, for all your support and faith for making this happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Rotman. Last but not least, I am honored to introduce Dan Tadmor, the CEO of Anu. Dan has been CEO of Anu Museum of the Jewish People for the past decade. He led the museum during its 10-year renewal process, which included a $100 million capital campaign through its opening as a brand new museum for the future of the Jewish people. Please welcome Dan Tadmor.
Shalom. First of all, a small detail about Igor that you probably didn't know. His day job is that he's part of the tech support team at Anu. So he's a concert pianist, but he also has a day job at Anu. Igor, toda raba. I came to it wasn't Anu, it was Bet Futsot 10 years ago. I came from the private sector. And the first thing that struck me when I hit the third sector was how little collaboration and consolidation there was within these sorts of organizations. And I learned with time the reasons behind it. Part of it has to do with ego, a large part. Parts of it have to do with organizations perpetuating themselves in the way they think they know how to do things. Part of it has to do with the fact that we all think we are so special, and only we know how to do things our own specific way. But the thing that surprised me is that I was expecting to see more, pressure is a strong word, more impetus from funders for us to get together. And I think the remarkable thing about this collaboration is that it was the Koret Foundation and Dr. Friedman and Jeffrey Farber who nudged both sides that they very much care about to collaborate, because they had the vision to see that a world-class university and a world-class museum should be able to create something that's bigger than both of them. I don't know that we, ANU, were up to the task a few years ago. The process that we went through in creating a museum is actually a lot deeper than that. The museum is just the tip of the iceberg. It's 15 years of work around establishing tenets of Jewish peoplehood and education. I think we're finally up to the task. I'm not sure that in previous years a professor would stand here and say to venture outside academia, which is the other part of the equation. It's Tel Aviv University's willingness is too weak a word. It's actually a mission to venture outside academia and reach the public. And I think that Anita and Jeff and the Koret Foundation identified within these two organizations a point in time where their collaboration can actually create something that's unprecedented and it can have a huge, huge impact. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, as content professionals and educators, we're just really eager to get into this and start doing it. I mean, this is really, really exciting, and we can't wait to get started. So thank you so much for having faith in us and for having faith in this idea. And we will not, we hope to be equal to the task.
Thank you, Dan. Please welcome back Igor Ostrovsky. Thank you, Igor. I am now pleased to invite Professor Koret, Irina Nevzlin, Dr. Anita Friedman, and Jeff Farber to present the certificate.
I think that next year this podium should be a little bit lower,
Yeah.
right?
Maybe
Okay,
we go to
yeah.
the middle.
Yeah, I just want I need to speak from
You
here.
go, you go,
Oh,
yes.
but please.
Go next year.
But Anita, you could exactly. Yes, thanks. Good. As long as you're next to me, I'm safe. Okay. This is to witness that on the 15th day of May 2022, Tel Aviv University and Anu Museum inaugurated the Koret Center for Jewish Civilization in the presence of the Koret Foundation, Dr. Anita Friedman, President, and Jeff Farber, Chief Executive Officer, thereby creating a unique collaborative framework for education, leadership, and research aimed at revitalizing Jewish peoplehood in the 21st century, leveraging the unparalleled expertise in Jewish and Israel studies on campus, alongside the robust cultural and educational resources of ANU, to seek out novel solutions to the challenges facing contemporary Jewish thought, social engagement, and identity, redressing the disconnect between Israel and global diaspora by extending and deepening connections among Jewish communities across North America, Israel, and worldwide, transforming Tau into a powerhouse for bolstering the place of Judaism in the world today, and reinforcing the valued partnership between Tau, ANU, and the Koret Foundation. I think now it's time for a photo, right? So